frame right now, I guess.
Wow, that's new.
It's new. I actually just met with a friend and we recorded a conversation, and she was doing like a spiritual reading for me, and she's like, okay, well, I'm going to record it because we agreed to it ahead of time. And then that voice popped on and we were both like, what?
That's quite surprising. But yeah, I guess for people that like don't see it coming, it's probably a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, they can't read the interface, so.
Or they're not looking, like they're driving or something and they don't know anything's being recorded and they're like, yeah. How's everyone
Being
doing?
lewd and rude.
Could be better. I think I caught a cold, so I maybe sound a little miserable today. But appearing my best. I don't think it's COVID. Hopefully, we'll find out in a day.
This is what happens when you live your loose nomadic lifestyle. Hopefully it's a short one. Yeah, I just got back from Pensacola, Florida yesterday for 5 days. So my brain is kind of still in swamp time, as I call it. Everything is slower and hotter and more conservative down there. So
Can you tell us about the alligators?
Oh, I was just, I was just painting a picture that perhaps I was chased by alligators. There were actually no alligators. There were more alligator roadkill than I've ever seen. So that's something. And then I saw an armadillo, and that's about it. Some dolphins. We went to, they got white sandy beaches and sort of tropical. It's like 80 degrees in the water. So, and there's just lifted trucks everywhere. And I went shooting guns with my dad and brother.
Nice.
So, it's but yeah, the sort of pace of the world is entirely different than what we've been getting into. And so I haven't thought about any of this stuff in a week. So we'll see how that goes. Kristen and I just went for a walk and sort of like warming my brain up, and it's like crawling through cobwebs, but that's where I'm at. And I shaved my beard off.
Similar level. Oh yeah, that took me a while to notice, but yeah. Okay, wow, it's a big change.
I feel like he's back. I was like losing my mind when he first did it. I was just like laughing and like staring at him, and he's just like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "You're like brand new. It's very fun."
A whole new Dave.
Yeah. How are you, Shahruz?
I'm good. Just chilling. Yeah.
Word. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Got a new environment this time, not the trees.
Yeah, I'm back in my apartment now, which
Cool.
Wi-Fi is not going to cut out this time. Luckily.
Yeah, we're still. Well, Kristen and I were going to try to cram some Taskmaster. Still haven't had a chance to do it. Yeah, we don't have Netflix right now.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then there we go. Anyways, what are you up to, or how you been, CJ?
Been good. Kind of busy. Running all over the place for surfboards, but other than that, surfing a lot, climbing a lot. Seems like I might get a job offer at that space company, but we'll kind of see. Yeah. So yeah, and then birthday stuff this weekend, so it's kind of been a little bit crazy. I've maybe spent like 5 or 6 hours on some like stuff, thinking about like the conversation we previously had, just like trying to ingest content into Buzzard a little bit easier. So I'm like, I created like my own private channel on Telegram where I'm just like putting links on things I'm consuming basically, and trying to build a Telegram bot to pull that and put it onto the GitHub automatically. Nice. So cool. So I think by the end of the week it'll probably be like pretty finished, maybe by end of today or tomorrow.
Sweet. Yeah, we had talked about when CJ was out here, we went for a walk and talked about sort of part of the thing that we want to head in a direction toward is like doing the co-publishing or whatever it was, like sort of simulating putting content together in a single environment and using that sort of 11D instance to just brain dump, like because each of us are producing a fair amount of like thinking or research or whatever it is around this kind of stuff, and being able to sort of ambiently check in with each other. And so the style that we loosely talked about doing was just everybody has their own sort of feed. Like, we haven't figured out organization, or I mean, you're doing it through, or CJ's doing it through Telegram. I was just going to sort of carve out a spot and like build out a little miniature site in the bigger site. And then not having necessarily a centralized feed, so that we're not, you know, you don't have the sort of overhead of worrying about spamming the feed. Everybody has an individual feed, and then see how that stuff breaks out, see where we're going to break it, just make a big fucking mess. Maybe start playing around with that and see where we land on it. So
yeah, no, I like this idea a lot. I've been meaning to experiment with something similar on a smaller scale, but like this seems like a much more like realistic environment to test it in. So yeah, I'm definitely down.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah. Anyhow, that's
I don't know how the 11D instance works. Is that checking files into Git basically, like Markdown, or
basically?
Yeah. It's I don't know if you've run across it, but it effectively, like that, it'll render any templating language, and so it's like all the static site stuff built into one. And the only reason we're using it is because it was easy enough for me to set up, and then we've just sort of stuck with it. So yeah, if you want access to the repo, I can send it over.
Sure, yeah, please.
If you're interested in poking around. So cool. All right, I'll do that today.
So if I wanted to just keep posting, because I'm like the least technical, so I'll just keep posting posts to Buzzard like I have been. Is that cool? Like that works? Okay.
Everything is fine, I think.
Because I don't want to think about, like, this is where I'm just like, I'm just going to do what I know how to do. Like, I was pleased that I figured out how to post everything, and Dave was out of town, and I had to figure out how to find the local instance, and I figured it all out. I was like, oh my God. So that's where I'm at. And I'm like, if I could just keep doing that, that works well for me.
Yeah.
I imagine
I think what we're doing is we're just, go ahead.
Well, yeah, like it'll, I mean, the stream will probably be generated regardless of how the content gets added. So whether it's a post or by Telegram or possibly future integrations later, like I think the point will be that it's
there
word,
somehow.
Agnostic to input type.
Yeah, and then I want to do some sort of like structural experiments to, appease my OCD, but they're probably going to be pretty simplistic from like a development standpoint. And then if there are any patterns that any of us develop, then we can sort of roll them into like broader practice. Yeah, it's just a sandbox, and then we'll see where it crumbles under the pressure. Yeah.
It's kind of neat. I like the different, it's almost like everyone has their own like little different publishing style. It's like, oh, cool, look at this. And like, what can I take from that and whatnot,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I mean, it's a fractal of the ethos that we're trying to work from. And then if we're moving towards a game where a lot of people are going to be playing it, and we're not trying to centralize, like figuring out what minimum amount of standard to allow like the broadest field of play, and then a sort of constraints. I mean, this is just a sort of more open style game, I guess. Like, and we've built trust enough to know that nobody's gonna like. I mean, I don't know what the downside would be. Like, there is no. The downside is that like we don't do it. That's it. Like, so it's a sort of a naturally. Like when we were walking around, like the tension was there, like CJ and Kristen and I were talking, and we've so we're just feeling out into a tension, and then this is a type of solution that isn't one. It's not like a directed plan and we're, sending out a checklist and we all need, it's just sort of, okay, like how do we play a game that might get us to the next level of play?
Yeah, I think part of it is seeing, I'm looking at everything through the friendship level thing now that I've read that, because it just, I don't know, it helps me to sort of work with a like structure like that, to just keep putting everything through that lens. Like I wrote up earlier how to look at Twitter through that lens, and I was like, oh, Twitter's a horrible game for friendship. Like it doesn't really like take into account any kind of leveling in. Like there's all, I mean, I just like sort of did a breakdown in my journal. But doing what we're talking about is sort of like the friendship level of ambient cooperation. So we're gonna theoretically be helping each other without intending to, but we don't know how we'll help each other. So the idea is that by sharing information of what we're reading, there will be some sort of emergent, like, oh, that makes sense, and look what happened here. And then, yeah, hopefully from that we can figure out what works well and, yeah, build from it, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, the other sort of area of, well, what Kristen and I were just getting into is like, I guess, constraining the sort of macro field of play here a little bit more, like sort of where we left off, like Shahruz was talking about the crazy eights and that stuff. We were talking about like potentially playing a game together, the five of us, which, we've got this big meta game, which is just sort of a serialized sandbox publishing thing, whatever that is. And then like, so I guess like sort of bringing in more folks to help build out the concept of the relational OS and like what is the first round of that, and how do we think about like bringing in more people who would be like early contributors, and then what the back to how much lore is there or how much not, and like what types of people these are, and so what is an early constraint like. And so the mechanic that we were talking about is like, so if we are inviting people into this sort of design fiction, this like dream of this thing being created, right? Like that's the overall pitch. We have to do that through some stages. And if the mechanic, the main mechanic is that we are building what it is together as it builds itself, right? There you need a starting point. We have the starting point with us here. But then there is a broader sort of goal, and there has to be a right tension in that, so that there is a level of challenge and some forward momentum that is produced by the play, and effectively we're trying to recruit a group of people, which I don't know, like Chris and I were talking about 20 to 50, but that's just a guess. Which, yeah, any help on that would be great. To come together to design the next level of play, like whatever that quantity. I mean, this is just a proposal, like sort of a way to think about maybe moving this forward. And we were thinking about like sort of how Shahruz is doing Chowder City, and like there's this initial game mechanic that gets you through the door, and then there's this other mechanic that unlocks the protagonist that brings you into the actual, and it's that one is oriented towards keeping you entertained and activated throughout the whole thing. And as a model for building entertainment, like sort of interactive consumptible, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I don't know how what we're doing differs from that, because I have a sort of aspirational thing where there are people for whom they can dedicate some amount of time like, so building, like it is similar to recruiting for a company, right? But the difference being you don't have a big pool of money and a vision, and then you are trying to entice people away from other equivalent pools of money and visions. You are instead creating the possibility of a future, like through some mechanism of communication, and then the play is inviting participation. Yeah, and so the thing won't exist without you, which is true also of joining a corporation. But you are also going to design how through your play, like the next level, and who else comes into the thing anyway. So that's where our mindset sort of was. If that sparks anything in anybody.
One question that comes to mind is, like, is there a range of participation that we'd expect, or would we want it to kind of be everybody's doing around the same amount?
I think it should be ranged. Yeah. Like, I think that if you can offer you're somebody for whom, like, say, marketing or community building or something, and you can do a couple hours or 3 hours here and there, and like that, great, and you've been doing it for a long time, so that's a highly leveraged 2 hours, all the better. And I think that this is where the publishing aspect comes in, the asynchronous aspect, where you're sort of able to keep up with potentially the thinking that's going on, without it being just like a Discord where you need to be present all the time and engaging. So the ideal is that there is a level of sort of deep thinking going on to some degree that you can consume through feeds or something.
Cool. And
your active participation can be just like, hey, this and this makes sense. Like, what about that? And that's enough. If you're also if you're embedding in the world, like, pretty deeply. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and we liked the idea of, I don't know if like the terminology will stick, but designing levels of play. So it's sort of like a round or like the equivalent of like a chapter in a book or a level in a game, because what we've found is if there's no constraint on what we're working on, it's really hard to like make forward progress. We're just sort of like, oh, I don't know, and we could do this and you could do that, and we could just keep meeting, and there's seepage. Like, it's just like, it's too amorphous.
Wandering around an idea space rather than like being able to like really concretize something and be like, okay, this is the box we're working in. Like, what do we actually like build inside this box? Like, what does the playground really look like?
Yeah, use the ideas. And like, it's the same thing I keep doing with the friendship, like leveling or building games for friendship. Like, keep putting everything through that. It's just a way to focus ourselves, I think.
Yeah.
So put all the things you're researching through the lens of whatever the level's about, kind of thing.
So would levels of play kind of like, in a way, be like different like ranges of participation? I mean, in some sense, like, I guess, like, I don't know if Shahruz was alluding to this earlier, is that related to time? And, does more time mean more synchronous? Does it not imply each other? Or is it all asynchronous? Like, is there a constraint there? Or are we leaving that open?
I think that's open. I think what we're trying to constrain is, so it's like a pre-mortem kind of thing, because you don't really know exactly what you want to achieve, but like, the next round of play that we're designing for now is, how do we bring more people in to like bring some life to this and add some structure to what we're doing at the same time, and what does that look like? So like, optimally at the end of this level, and I don't know how to constrain time, like temporally, like if we're like, oh, we're going to play for a month, if that's useful or whatever, that we would have at least 10 people in. Like, again, it's like a pre-mortem, like we'll probably see between 10 to 30 people added, or 10 to 20 people, or whatever it is. And in addition to those people being in, we'll also have, structurally, I'm not sure exactly what we're looking for, just a way of communicating, working on projects, like proposing projects. I'm not sure. Like this is where it's hard to talk about it because it's that fractal over and over again. Like we're building it, so it's hard to talk about it. But
yeah, we're creating a mess so that we know, and then we're going to sift through that mess. The stuff of value will sort of spring up, and then like it's a method of moving forward by just creating a catastrophe potentially, but it's a contained catastrophe, and then like tensions will emerge, and then the necessity to resolve those tensions is a gameplay mechanic, right? Like, oh, let's get together. We're creating our own problems, and we have an incentive to solve those problems if we want to continue to play. So rather than having like a mission in particular, because even the like relational OS as a concept, I like it. I would like for it to exist. I hope that other people want it to exist, but it's just it's a thing, and it might attract the type of people for whom like playing these types of games would be interesting, right? Because I think that there is an overarching methodology that can be applied to other types of projects like ours. So I don't know, we get it's one of these things. Yeah.
You talked about seasonality. Does that, I guess I'm curious about seasonality and instances. Like, let's say that if you're designing for a maximum or ideal of like 40 to 50 people, but we're making something that can or should be able to be repeated or rehosted by other groups of up to 45 or 50 people.
Yeah,
it's kind of two dimensions of like, are we doing multiple seasons of the one instance or many instances that can run in parallel? Just kind of curious about how to position ourselves in those two things.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that, so what's coming up here is like sort of process and output, right? Like if there is a structure of the seasons that is meant to sort of coordinate towards specific outcome, right? Like, we are trying to move towards building a user interface for a specific kind of componentry, right? And, there is a sort of a set, a season where you maybe have a bunch of cohorts who are playing similar types of games, and then, across, a bunch of 50s. And then at the end, there is some reveal that, I don't know, right? This is where, or if just it's,
maybe
I don't know on
like
this one. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe there's a thing where whatever we're working on, the part of the goal is there's an intent to share a process so someone else could pick it up and use it no matter what it is. So you're coming up, which is the fractal of relational OS is symbolic or an instantiation of this larger like hyper object that's hard to talk about. And so then like that happens with each season or each level. Like you're trying to, because otherwise it sounds like this where you're trying to talk around it. So it's like try to manifest it into something that's like concrete and tangible, but with a way of talking about it that's more I don't know what the word is. It's like this is like the protocol versus application that someone else could pick up and use for any other like task that's similar.
I think so something that's popping up here is like sort of, I remember hearing this thing about like seasonality in the sort of societal or civilizational sense. Like, so there are a couple things. One you have like seasons in the world that are related to a particular part of, like, say, agriculture, right? Like we're in the harvesting season, and the types of activities and celebrations and kinds of ways of living are oriented around the type of work that you're doing. And then there is the sort of, I think, like in Japan, like the emperor or the aristocracy, it like defines civilizationally a definition for the season, right? Over some period of time, and we are going to work towards this thing as a people. This is the overriding ethos. So it may be that there is a sort of macro version of that, and we are going to play games in this style and you know, those constraints are designed in that season to produce a style of play, and then the size of the group is changed around that sort of, and whether or not there are instances, I don't know. Anyways, that's something. It's real vague, but
so if we take that though, like, what does our civilization need right now, I guess, is the question. Like, what season are we entering into? It feels like there's a kind of like shoring up of resources and some kind of coming together. Like, there's a focusing thing. We're trying to force function something, right?
Yeah, well, I think, like, in terms of like you're saying, like, okay, what does our civilization need right now? In a way, I feel like you've kind of asked Kristen like two questions that maybe point to that, and maybe picking apart them is, or like digging into them a little bit more would be useful, is like how to bring more people in. That was like one of the questions, like, okay, well, what is actually required to bring more people in? Is like, we can definitely like talk to more people and get them interested and be like, hey, join this, but do we have a concrete enough sense ourselves to do that? I mean, like, certainly, like, I know a few people off the top of my head. I'm like, oh yeah, like I can probably get like that person interested in that person, but that's like a pretty small set of everyone. And I guess even the guy who like John mentioned today, like that guy seems like very like similar kind of conversations happening. So what are the mechanisms that like we're going to use, or like even put constraints on, like how are we get, like what methodology are we going to use to actually bring people in? Is it just going to be random, or are we going to be like a little bit more focused and like in tune, or like, or do we want to create a document and be like, okay, at least like this is some level of like idea that everyone can kind of core base off of, or something.
Yeah, how are we bringing people in, and then what are they doing once they're in is like the next, which we keep getting stuck in that too. And we were hoping to talk about that today, so here we are.
There's also the thing that should probably be avoided of like the infinite MLM, you know, especially like the techniques that a lot of popular apps right now are using, where it's like to get in, invite 3 people, and like obviously like the numbers are all great, the metrics are off the charts, but
we don't want
becomes
that.
this very toxic, like all-consuming. It's like that's clearly like not the right thing, but there is something that maybe does hit like a sustainable growth balance of some sort, because there is also this nature of like you go through one of these maybe games or seasons, and then you want to hand it to somebody. You don't want to hand it to like maybe necessarily more people than yourself. Like what if n is like stays at 1? Maybe like that might be like a different model.
Yeah, quality over quantity, I think, in the beginning, for sure. Shahruz, you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, I think as a draw in activity and function, like decentralized publishing with an audience that you know is going to be into tangentially, you know, similar things and is thinking along the same lines and would potentially be interested in what are otherwise, you know, kind of these niche subjects that not too many people care about. I think like that alone might be a big draw to start with. At least that's what gets me excited about like the conversation so far and stuff.
So you're saying that like the invitation to hold on, internet's being stupid.
Been bad all day.
So you're saying like what I'm hearing is basically the like playing in the ability to talk about these things and discover together in these things, and publishing, like building tools to publish concepts around the decentralized stuff is enough to entice the types of people for whom like having a novel interest in this at all right now is there's an overlap with the type of people who would probably build it, because like is that you're kind of saying that, or am I off?
No, I think, yeah, you took it a little bit further than I did, but yeah,
okay,
along the same lines. Yeah, I was thinking much more abstractly about it, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that there's,
yeah, that helps a lot actually for me. This specifically what you said, Shahruz, about people that might not be specifically interested in like the nitty gritty and like the content around how to build this exact thing, but they are interested in some aspect of it. So this helps select more broadly, because you can kind of bring your own interest, I guess, as long as you're playing in the way that we're trying to build and play.
Yeah, what's popping up is sort of which speaks to what CJ was saying about like how are we communicating this, like invitation.
Yep.
And what sort of pops up is that we have this philosophy that we don't know what we're doing. You know what we're doing, and we need you to come tell us what we're doing. Like, and then if that's something that appeals to you, but we are together building constraints, like, you know, for right now, like we throw out attention, we need more people, right? Like, okay, like here are all the problems that come up if we need more people. And so how do we bring them in? What do we say to them? What type of people? You know, so the proposal for movement forward produces a bunch of problems for which we can self-organize around, right? And that philosophy of building, and we are all here voluntarily, like because we wish to see this thing exist. And then there is a greater narrative behind the thing that is, what if we could have this, you know, style of technology that allowed you to do all of these things, and you know, the mechanism for building the what if is this style of play. So that's the, you know, yeah. So okay.
So in other words, there's like two layers. One is the thing itself, the idea being shared, and then like that's going to hook some people because they're just like, I want to see this thing exist and help me, like, or like this is a way for me to help join that process. And then the other layer is just like the act and the like process of sharing that itself is the appealing part for people, like understanding the system and growing the system and sharing the system. And there, I guess for some people there's going to be like, they're just drawn in by both, but I guess it's kind of like the medium versus the message, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, we are. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, like we are co-creating a medium, and the medium is naturally collective in nature, collaborative in nature, and it is impossible to see without participation. Like it cannot be described. It is only described through play. And like if that will, for people who can hear that, I think it's a siren call. Then it's just sort of core, like offering them a type of thing that you know, this is the relational OS. Why it popped up is like, well, we got to do something, right? Like it's a tangible entity, or the potential for a tangible entity that like has a bunch of functionality and feature sets and needs and wants and desires that can be played into, right? It could be equally like design a civilization, right? Like, you know, whatever. This is one that's just we understand software, and what's the largest field of play that allows you to play within all of the substructures of software and all of the types of things that yeah. So okay, I'm just talking out loud, by the way, and like I'm not proposing anything. I'm just trying to map this.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be people who they just want the thing to exist in the world, so they're willing to play in the space in such a way because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting because then you'll get a broader like swath of information to play with, which is good. I think having which gives more depth in a way, because diversity, I guess, is sort of what's dancing around in my head. Like a diversity of thought, I think, is ideal, because otherwise, like if you recruit people who are all like super similar to us, you get into the feedback loops or echo chambers where you're just building or talking about the things that and then it's nice when someone like jumps in there like, what are you talking about, like how would this work, and you're just like, whoa, what? Yeah,
I think the first instance of this that like was illustrative is when Shahruz showed up with the game stuff. Like, okay, and then that offers a new fractal on the thing. You're like, okay, so ideally we get like broader versions of that kind of thing, and then we have to collapse it into something that's coherent. Like we are trying to produce like the widest the sort of the broadest structure at depth that can scale without tearing itself to pieces. So, or something.
I'm just imagining like if there's 50 people, like I feel like trying to keep up would be very hard, and you would I think almost naturally you would like kind of see the people who are most in line with your thinking, which could be like one thing to be aware of. Like I'm just imagining like like if there's 50 more people, you're gonna like these people, like we're all talking about like basically the same thing. We're just gonna like build that thing or like talk about that thing, or like that'll like naturally like maybe concretize thing a little bit, because I think in some sense like we're all having same ideas, but we're all already from different backgrounds for the most part. And it's like we're like in this, and like you almost need to like go into like little spaces and like have more people build a little thing in each of those little spaces, and then come back with that thing and be like, oh, how do all of these things that we're building interact with each other? Because I guess the overall idea, and maybe it's what Shahruz pointed out earlier, is like that decentralized publishing is how does that actually like kind of bubble up? So I guess at least like I think it just hit me like more that I see how more people will be helpful. Is like right. It's like more that serendipity kind of thing where we've been talking about as well, and even maybe like some of this ambient stuff is like you kind of just look around and be like, oh, they're doing that and they're doing that, and you're like, oh, how do these ideas tie in?
And then you get a role for the curators, like that is a fundamental role, where like, so one of the things I'm most excited about in this is that I like to be extremely broad. Like I would go look at everything, absolutely everything, talk to everybody, and then part of that is then having tooling, this decentralized publishing stuff, where I'm, offering my perspective on what I'm seeing, and then trying to understand like what people are up to and how they're thinking about it as a practice, right? And then, rejiggering that in a way with other people, with a group of people who are also broad in their thinking, to try and bubble up patterns and tendencies and direction. And then you have a sort of larger conversation that's coordinating the overall direction of the thing. It's sense making, right? And the larger the field of play, the larger the information sphere, the more that you need tooling to build to figure out which is where, if you've got a lot of people producing large feeds of content, then you need sort of mechanism to orient to those feeds, which I find fascinating. So, and games to play to coordinate that stuff, right? Like, okay, we've got this particular big problem. Here's like, you know, people can propose like, here, what if a game worked like this, or, and here it's just a bad proposal, and then you get in and you start to work it out, and then you end up with like, you know, 2 months of play within this coordinated area with these kinds of like sort of goal mechanisms, and you know, like, here's the first hurdle to get through to initiate the play, and then here's potentially a reward, go. And then the output of that play would hopefully be a set or a range of potential solutions to the overarching problem, right? Yeah.
How do we translate that for what we're doing right now? Like,
I think that is, yeah. So the problem that we have now, the proposal is that we need to bring in the first round of people beyond us to help us define, I don't know what that, like, what is the overarching problem and constraint
and like,
area?
What could the game look like that we're recruiting people to play? Like, how are they decentralized publishing? Like, what does, like, how do you share that with people? Like, where are they publishing? On Buzzard?
Yeah, the chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we run into this over and over and over again.
Yes. I feel like it's still almost coming down to like maybe one of the like core fundamental tensions with us, as we're saying, you know, like as we're saying this at the very beginning of the call, we're all publishing in different ways, but it's like, that doesn't help someone like come in, because then they have to like find out their own way of doing it. And it's just like it's like a GitHub repo, and that's not very like friendly. Like it's just like a high barrier to entry. Like we've had to work at it like for how many hours? It's like, that's like such a high barrier to entry to anyone, I feel like, even if you're technically savvy.
I do agree with that, but there's something about it being a GitHub repo, and every GitHub repo inherently having the like ability to be forked, that is really interesting to me. And like, if it's kind of this package, and let's say maybe the GitHub repo is the only like the underlying portion, but kind of, you know, like Shahruz, some of the tooling you built, where it's like a one-click clone, and then you have like this parallel version that you or like your cohort can post to, and all of them like sort of cross-syndicate to each other. Then it sort of achieves both, where like, you know, there's still some control, like changes can be like passed around, but there's still, you know, separation and kind of like this federated feel to it.
It seems like one of the bigger decisions or like things that we could create here is a standard that could be, you know, applied to all these different posts that you know, would make it easier for people to fork or for it to interoperate, but it would also be something where we could then open source and have people build like integration, so it pulls from a Telegram and it converts your Telegram post into the right markdown or whatever flavor that we use. So I don't know, yeah, the standard seems like at the heart of this thing is some kind of like post standard.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that mean that we need to play around ourselves then of posting for some short period of time?
I think so. I mean, that's what was popping up for me. Like this, I mean, we've talked about doing the big mess.
The big mess.
And then from that big mess, like we're participating in the thing to find the thing. And then like I designed best like this anyway. Like I need to go hammer on it and then like try to find the minimum like feasible thing. And this will induce me to actually do it instead of continuously talking about it and thinking about it and drawing about it.
That's good. That's the whole point of this. Like if you create constraint, then there's like inherent motivation that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like, what is that? It has like, it's like the reverse of nihilism. If you give like an end, there's meaning then.
Yeah. There have to be stakes.
Flag in the sand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why doing like the nomadism thing, like this is like I have this pattern in my head because I was emailing with someone who did the nomad thing, and I was telling him it's our last week in LA, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, things get weird in the last like time. He's like, and it doesn't matter. He's like, it can be like the last few hours, the last few days, months, like it just depends on how long you're in a place.
Yeah.
And then on Twitter, we were continuing the conversation. He's like, it's like it with people too, like breakups or like distance. Like all of a sudden when you're like, oh, it's ending, or there's like an end point, like the whole like perspective on things shifts. So I guess it's the same thing. Yeah, this pattern is just playing out today for me, I guess.
Back to deadlines and seasonality. Like those things they're forcing functions,
right? So there's some amount of deadlines and like the way that they're proposed, or I mean sometimes it can be triggering.
Opt-in rather than like top-down. You know, these are for our bottom line paperclip like counts.
I think it's If I don't make 3 contributions to the standard in the next week, the entire repo deletes itself.
Which tangentially does remind me of an NFT today I saw that self-destructs when the global climate like temperature rise reaches above 2 degrees Celsius. And I was like, oh, whoa, like that's really like weird in like a really beautiful but like sad way.
Yeah, what's that concept that I haven't read about it too much yet, but like planetary limitations that we were talking about. Like designing with that constraint in mind for sustainability purposes is, I mean, some of the crypto stuff does this inherently, and this is just another example of that. That's cool.
Yeah, I think a mechanic for money that works this way would be nice, where the more you collect, the more responsibility it is. Rather than, it's like the inverse of a hoarding thing. So the money is then connected to some, I don't know, you have to do more work to maintain it, which is inherent, you know, that exists. It's a something to offset compounding, or something. I don't know.
Taxes.
Anyways.
There they are. That's what we got so far.
We're gonna tax all of you. Join our game.
Join our game. It's a tax simulator.
There's no accountants though.
Yeah, the winner gets to be H&R Block. Mr. QuickBooks.
All right, so what's our create the big mess experiment look like?
I had to just like, it's kind of funny because the conversation took out a turn. Like, I was just like, maybe just like post 10 things. I don't know, like doesn't matter what it is, just like 10 things. Yeah. But is that too much? That's like very unconstrained.
I think that's fine.
But there's something I find interesting about the 10 things though. It's similar to VisiCon's like do 100 things, do 100 reps, which, you know, it kind of like acts as a forcing function for like getting something out. And yes, 10 things of anything may be a little overwhelming, but 10 things within some constraint, you know, on the other hand, gives it like a very definable, like, ooh, like I can get there. And like, even if I only have 7 things, I'm going to like go a little extra to make, you know, 10.
Yeah. It's an aspirational goal. It is a target that's out there that is, you know, not an assignment. It is a built-in tension that you can strive for. Because immediately what's coming up for me is like, I want to try as many post types as possible to see what the structure of my page would look like. And even, you know, potentially like have enough content in there that I would want to style some of this stuff and start providing like more, you know, like typographical stuff, or, you know, like get an image in the thing and then be like, all right, well, I want to build some structure around that. And then, you know, people can use that code for whatever. So, So even if the content is thin, Yeah, so there's a level of depth of content versus, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, because Kristen did like a pretty hefty post, right, which gives us a lot of stuff to work with. Like one of the things that CJ and we were talking about was, I'm like sort of doing my trawling thing with content. I'm like watching a ton of YouTube videos and reading a bunch of stuff or whatever every day and hopping around things, and I'm making these notes, but I have no particular method for doing this. I just sort of have like a bare document open, and I just drop a URL, and then like here's a bunch of notes. They're not connected to anything or whatever it is, and half of them are just sort of staying in the information sphere of the idea and then looking for insights. So having somebody or knowing that it is within a system that other people could read it, even if they're never going to, will give it a constraint so that I actually start formalizing that process to some degree. So, so yeah, that's how I'm thinking about like an initial post type. Okay, so these things are going to exist, and it might be a standard, or there's the potential for talking about it as a standard. So that's another force function kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. So 10 sounds fine.
I think something maybe interesting, like on top of just 10, could also be like 1, which is like meta, just like describe your process or something.
Okay.
Or maybe that can be a call or something, like, I don't know, is it just, I guess, some level of documentation of like, instead of just like 10 things, it could be like kind of random seeming for someone from the outside, but it's probably less random than you think.
Yeah.
So
for every post type, have like a top level description of what to expect within that post type. And if we're just, like I was thinking about having those things as collections. And so this is my, YouTube notes collection or whatever it is. And then this is my approach to the YouTube notes collection. And that thing is versioned because I'm going to develop it over time. We had this in Ponder, like posts and then moving them into collections. And there was like a top level, like sort of, you could define an image and, like a description and all of these kinds of things. So even if that's just like the first post in the stream or whatever, and you go back and that makes sense.
So curious, because when CJ mentioned his meta post type, which is I feel like a little different to yours. Okay. Yours feels like something you write up front. CJ's feels like something you write at the end of it. Like here is the overarching connections I saw while going through the process. Yours is kind of more like, here's how I'd like to structure this information. But at the same maybe it's more that one wants to read your post type up front and CJ's after. It's not even that they're written at that point, because I think things are written all over the place. But and like CJ's is almost kind of like, here are the commonalities across post types, because I feel like the 10 could have multiple different types, and yours is a little more like, here's the definition of this post type, which
I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, right.
No, I think
I'm kind of space for both, and like that. But I'm seeing a bit of a difference between the two.
I think so. I guess
that's interesting. Go ahead, CJ.
I think the difference that I'm personally seeing is like, I think I see like how Dave is about like thinking about approaching this problem, which is like these post types. Like I think I'm thinking about the problem in a different way. I'm like, well, since it's 10 of anything, it's like I don't have to do 10 different post types. Like maybe I just want one post type, and I'm going to build a piece of software, which I already am building. Like I want to like document that piece of software and like what went on, as well as on top of the posts and what went into them themselves. And I can see that I might put more than 10 pieces of content in, but maybe I only want to constrain it to 10 coming out. So it's more like, maybe I have 100 things going in, but I say, actually only 10 of those were really important and relevant. It's like all of those things were interesting to me, but it's like filtering back down to 10.
I see. Yeah, it's a folding technique. Yeah, like in this. Yeah, I don't know why I've been using this, but you're synthesizing like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the mechanism that I was talking about is pretty navigational, like, because I think in front end terms, like when you are encountering the thing that you're about to see, here is some contextual information to help you navigate what you are about to see. So
yes.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in
also,
terms of,
which is also super, super important and interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the level of meta. Is it at the post level or is it at the collection level of the 10? And it could be that what I was going to say this earlier, what I like about this is that someone might do like 10 of one specific kind, because that's just, I don't know, they feel like exploring that sort of approach, or it's just whatever comes up and there's 10 different ones. So yeah, like you could do what you want with it, kind of thing.
Totally. And I guess that I think just whatever comes out of it maybe is interesting and just deserves like conversation itself.
Yep.
I think like that could be like some level of documentation. It's really maybe just a starting place.
Yeah, this is where we have our sort of buzzard feed where we do synthesis on these things and make posts from that sort of perspective, which are, or it's just potentially one of these videos.
Yeah, we should definitely do like a post-mortem of what happened, because every time we've done what
good pun.
Yeah. Every time we've done one of these games, they're like, that's where things get really interesting, because we're all just like, whoa. And it's I don't know, like the pre-mortem on this game will be that we're going to see the fractal of everyone being like, okay, so everyone did it different. There was a little bit of anxiety about like, oh, how is mine going to be different than everyone else's? But then it's going to turn into like, holy shit, this is really cool. Everyone's doing something different and it all works together in this way. Yeah.
Okay.
This is exciting.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's interesting. We like kind of started with a bunch of questions like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And then game.
I mean, this is how this thing works. Like it is this fractal over and over again. And my feeling coming into these things usually is that I'm like on the verge of panic every time. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work.
Terror.
And I don't know that we can get together. And because it is way too large to hold in my head. And then half the time Kristen is like working with me and she's just like, yeah, let's wait till we get on the call and it'll be fine and we'll figure it out. And every time this is sort of how it pops out. And it usually pops out in a coordinated piece of work that needs to be done that will move you towards something that might give you an answer, but probably just produces more fun questions. So continuous play. Cool.
Beautiful.
All right. Well.
Yeah, this is the aporia thing where it feels like you're at some sort of like irresolvable like place, and that there's too much going on, and you have to create like the mess, and from the mess emerges something. Why does that work? It's very odd. There's something here about creation and like birthing of ideas that I mean, this is the brainstorm thing.
Serendipity.
Yeah. It's interesting.
You got to scramble the eggs to make them tasty. That's what they say. That's what Socrates said.
That's what Socrates said. Very wise man. I wonder if scrambled eggs were his favorite.
Oh, he loved it. It's his last meal before they killed him. Scrambled eggs. Cool. All right. Well, I've been not using a computer to make anything for months, so now I have to. Yeah, I've been just like trying to find an on-ramp to like being in. I mean, I buzzard stuff a little bit here and there, but like I mostly just am on my iPad like doodling and writing notes. So this is the first time I have to actually get into
very powerful computer nowadays. So it's
true.
Kind of blurry line now.
I guess I mean production machine, but I guess it's also blurred. I mean, this is a big part of like what I'm trying to figure out what work is, because work used to be go build something tangible for which lots of people can use, you know, or you have to code something or design something. This is more fun. We cover so much more ground than me just like sitting in a room like banging my head against the wall against patterns that are too big to see. So it's cool.
Do we need other constraints? Do we want to put time around this? Like duration of play?
Well, when thinking about duration, I also feel like there's a duration of like finding the people as well. That's sort of kind of like pre-start. You know, assuming I'm not sure what sort of like distribution mechanism we go about here, but you know, assuming we need like people to find it and like sort of orient themselves with it, and then like you know agree to start doing it. That like process might take, let's say, like a couple of weeks, and then yeah, like some set amount of time for the game itself, like allowing you know brainstorming and just like sitting there for a bit. And they feel like they should be roughly like even, at least my gut for some reason. Like it can't be like so far in the future that people like put it on the calendar and then forget, but at the same time, you know, like a long enough period that everybody across the time zone and people's jobs and stuff can like participate to a meaningful degree.
Yeah.
As to what that time period is, I don't know. Like,
Kristen, were you talking about the like the publishing mess that we're doing now versus the larger game?
Yeah, are we gonna run those concurrently then? Like there's
I see.
Yeah.
No,
publishing game. Yeah. Is
Yeah.
the publishing game a precursor to the
I think so.
recruitment? Okay.
That's makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we do a round of play there, and then we will have a
Regroup.
better idea of how to design the game for what you're talking about, John. And then probably those
because it's just going to be a scaled down version of that game.
Exactly. It'll be that standard that Shahruz was talking about will hopefully pop up, and then how we're going to communicate and to whom, like how we're going to draw them in. Like
definitely lots of open questions there.
Yeah. Well, I think that should the style of play there should be like, okay, well, we're going to need X weeks and like, you know, yeah. So I think depending on how this next round goes, we'll have better information on that one.
Definitely.
Because that's where I was at when we came into this conversation. It was blowing my brain apart. So yeah.
Yeah. I think my overcooked brain here is just like skipping frames.
It's fine.
It's good. And if you can be out far ahead, then I can just sit around. It's good.
How much time are we giving ourselves for this 10 thing?
10 days?
That feels appropriate.
Yeah.
10 days is pretty cool.
It's not like each one takes a day, but that way, you know, you kind of have like a rhythm and you can like
10 posts, 10 days. It sounds like something.
Yeah, totally.
Also, if I spaz out and post a lot more than that, sorry.
Oh yeah. I suspect Dave's gonna be like 8 on the first day and then like nothing, and then, like 20 more on like the last 2 days.
Sounds about right. Well, we talked about that last stretch. It gets real productive.
Yeah.
Do we want to try to like meet right after it? What's the thought on, does it make sense to meet closer to them? Yeah.
Okay, one personal question I have, I guess, as a parallel question to are we meeting is like,
are we consuming
they being
everything?
sent out as they're being made, or are they like being dated?
I think they should come out as you make them.
I kind of feel like that too, unless like for some reason, like, I think you want to like gate like 2 or 3 of them for some reason because they all like come out at the same time. But yeah, I think it would be interesting because I almost suspect like to go 1 degree further there is responding to others' a post type, or could it be a post type, right? Like, I guess that is an open question, but the idea of them being released as time goes on implies that perhaps like yours could be a remix of other people's,
Totally.
and that is a
I
new
think that
post
counts.
type. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Because that's a style of play. Like somebody
Yeah.
who doesn't originate things. I mean, because curation could be like, here are
Right.
5 things across the thing, and that's a post type,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like collection kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
But then
Yeah.
it's really good to have response as a post type as well, because it's something we definitely care about.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, meeting right after would feel, right. Or I guess maybe at the end of, on day 11 or 10, like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's good. I mean, we've been doing that sort of with the black boxes and stuff, and
Yep. Yeah, I guess so. It's,
I mean, we'll have lots to talk about.
Yeah, it has like hints of a black box, but it's not quite, because things are sort of being more shared as they're created, which, I think is a good thing. But like at the same time, I'm wondering, but part of it is still like a black box, because I guess like the meta reactions will be what's sort of black boxed to some extent. And I guess meta reaction can be like written throughout it, but then again, meta reaction could be a post as well.
You
So
could have, yeah, I mean, we could do one post is a meta reaction that you don't share until the day of or something.
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like it's got like a drop date.
So that's a response to somebody else's that's already been posted during that time.
Or just the experience. So
yeah, just like emotions.
Yeah, what happened here? What, like, how did you experience, like, the whole of it? Yeah.
Cool.
And again, it can be in any format. It could be a painting.
Be a painting?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I feel like. I made this 3D art. Yeah.
Black and exploding.
Yeah. Basically. Holographic interpretive dance.
I'd love to see that one.
I'm gonna have to build a plugin.
Does Monday, June 7th work for people to meet? What do Mondays usually look like?
Likely, yes.
Works for me.
I can't do anytime after 6, but before on Monday, that's fine. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Should we stick with like 2:30?
That's fine.
Sure. We'll see if our internet works in Mexico.
Yeah, we might. The three of us might be sitting
we
together.
Send you a flash drive. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
If we have no internet, we have to mail you a flash drive.
Okay, perfect.
You're gonna have to do upstream Git commits from
Yeah, we're gonna have to like do all our posts locally and then run to an internet cafe and push them like scuttlebutt.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh.
Maybe I should just come down for that day, or for the weekend, and stay for the day too. Potentially an option.
Every experiment ends up in person. It's a requirement to join the community.
It's like you all fly to one place. They're like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, I hope that we have a game big enough that we have to get together in a retreat center to unpack it.
Game. Then I'll get to go back to my scavenger hunt days. I used to create scavenger hunts for my siblings growing up, like around the house and like, I don't know if we did do kind of neighborhood stuff. But yeah, they loved it. It was great. And like babysitting was fun because I'd like set up all this stuff and then they would leave me alone and they'd go like find things and like freak out because they couldn't find like a clue or something. And and then they got like, I don't even remember, they got prizes, little goodie bags and paper bags. It was probably like food that we had in the house or something and like stickers.
Leftover green beans.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, we did another one.
Nice.
It is very
I just
fun when these
imagine the
things come
conference.
together.
I just imagine the conference and a bunch of people with their hair on fire. Just
Yeah.
running around, bumping into each other, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
check out this thing that I just heard."
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, by that time, we'll have software where they can just stick it in that thing and then, you know,
Yeah.
great.
Proliferate. Oh.
Cool.
We are just idea spreading machines.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Memes. Memes.
Memes.
What else?
Cool.
I don't know. I got nothing else. I'm ready to make posts. Well,
Yeah. I mean, this is a first where
Me
we're
too.
just like, okay, well, there's that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Any other business? Any other buzzard business?
Parting shots. I worked with someone that used to say that.
Parting
Mhm.
shots.
Yeah, any parting shots.
Mm.
He was like president of the company, and I think was just used to being like fired at. And he was just like, "Let's go!" Like,
Oh,
and
wow.
when it was no, it was just he was like, "All right, cool, see ya."
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Whatever.
Shahruz,
Yeah.
Shahruz, if you do want to come down to Ensenada, we'll be down there.
When are you guys
You
going?
can visit. Where or when?
When?
Month of June.
Whole month of June.
All of June.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we got
know
Yeah,
where
let me
we'll
think
be.
about it. Maybe a little brief window of time in there.
cool.
That'd be awesome.
We're not really sure what it's like where we're going to be, but
Okay.
it's
Find
there's a
out.
beach nearby.
There'll be a
and
beach and nice food.
and an Italian restaurant. So what else do you need?
John, have your parents asked you traveling to Mexico if it's safe?
Well, I guess the reverse question of that is like they now have plans to potentially travel to Mexico themselves,
good.
and I did not before I went. So it seems like
You've
like
proven out that it's safe.
yeah. Mhm,
My mom,
mhm.
that
not
was her
dead.
question. She's like, "Is it safe where you're gonna be?" I'm like, I mean, I would think so. Like, I'm not going into like a lion's
Yeah.
den or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that close to the border we're definitely good.
Yeah, I'm not worried, but
Also,
I
it's
just
like
thought it was such an
pretty pretty
interesting. Yeah, Dave's
Yeah.
aunt and uncle. What did they say? They're like, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch of murders down in Baja California." So we were thinking about
No.
moving there, but we're not. Like, what was
Yeah,
No, my uncle he's funny, and they were considering buying a place down there or whatever, and then retiring, and then
yeah.
he's just like, yeah, you're probably gonna get murdered because that's almost certainly
Have
what's
fun.
happening down there. And I'm like, okay, well, what have you heard? And he's like, nothing. I'm making that up. He just wants to give you anxiety for fun.
Yep. There are those
That's
people.
useful.
Yeah, I don't really have this at all with places. I don't know. So I just find it interesting when people's first concern is like mortal like harm. And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't like, yeah. I don't think I'm totally naive. I can be, but yeah, if you have some situational awareness, like
Yeah.
be okay. Yeah. And like okay to know like if you get to a place and it just doesn't feel good that you can leave.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we'll be good.
Bless you.
Good. All right, I'm gonna go eat some food.
Cool.
This was
Yeah,
fun.
food sounds nice.
Fun again.
Oh, likewise.
All right.
Ooh.
Till
Cool.
next time.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Bye, everyone.
See you
Feel
guys.
better, John.
Bye.
Bye.
feel
Yeah,
better.
feel better.
You get better.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.
See ya.